This is the New York City FC Pregame Live. Tonight, New York City hosts the New York Red Bulls in the first ever playoff edition of the Hudson River Derby. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
Indeed, and welcome. It's the 30th edition of the Hudson River Derby, but the first ever in the MLS Cup Playoffs. New York City FC off their dramatic win in penalties to eliminate favorite FC Cincinnati, and then the New York Red Bulls, who produced the biggest revelation in the playoffs thus far, a sweep of the defending MLS Cup champions, Columbus Crew SC. Hey, we're going to carry the game for you. I'm Glenn Crooks. There's Matty Lawrence on the New York City FC Network. Coming up, kickoff is at 5:40 p.m., and we'll begin our pregame show on both the network and SiriusXM FC at 5 p.m. Eastern. For now, we're going to do our live preview and go through some things. I got a bunch of clips, Matty. You're going to enjoy this one. And first, the thing we want to talk about is this. Let's go back to the stadium. See, over the right field stands and across Seaver Way, we now have the name of the stadium, Etihad Park. So it's Etihad Stadium, where it did go well for Manchester City today. Hopefully New York City will have better fortune with Etihad Park. And when will they break ground? Well, our boy Chris Campbell, he is the one who understands what's happening on the stadium front, has since the beginning. And he says the permits or whatever else is needed. I have difficulty paying attention to all the mechanics. But last sentence there, groundbreaking for the NYCFC Stadium should be very soon. They were hoping in September. Now it's October. Well, it's actually November. And but I think that's probably coming soon. So that'll be nice to see the shovel in the ground, right?
Yeah, well, let's hope it's not January or February when the grounds are pretty hard and frozen. That'll be a lot harder to break ground then. But all joking aside, I think it will be fantastic for everybody involved with NYCFC and the local community as well to see ground being broken. It will be magnificent to have a soccer-specific stadium within the five boroughs. Look, it's been a long time coming. It will be well worth the wait. We know that. No surprise that it's the Etihad part. I think whether it was park or stadium or arena was the only thing that anyone was. So do I. Etihad Park. I like it. But there wasn't many people betting against the Etihad.
No.
It was just the next part of it that we could bet on. But yeah, it will be magnificent. It will save us. However great it is coming to wonderful stadiums like Citi Field or Yankee Stadium, the fact of the matter is it's a cardinal sin to play soccer, football in a non-soccer specific stadium, in my opinion. So whether that's going to Seattle and playing an American football stadium, wherever it may be, I think that, it's a cardinal sin. But that will all dissipate very, very soon, Glenn, or by 2027.
Yeah, well, there is the converted baseball field to soccer here at Citi Field, where New York City this year has a record of 4-2-1. So they've been happy here, including their most recent match, a 3-1 playoff win over FC Cincinnati. But when we last met, Matty, it looked like this. Lining up for penalties at TQL Stadium against FC Cincinnati. And Matt Freese getting his first clean sheet in 15 games. That was one thing that was significant regarding the match. So it's 0-0 at the end. And then the penalties were crazy, and there were a number of misses. And so when I spoke to Dick Cushing for our pregame show, I wondered how his health was after that. So let's see what he has to say here.
There was certainly drama. Do you wear a GPS during the game?
I'm actually okay. I don't get too stressed through games because I understand the sort of process and principles of games, and it just can't always go your way. When we missed the first opportunity on the penalties, I was okay. When we missed the second, I was frustrated. When we missed the third, my head had gone. And by then, I don't know if you can say, I didn't actually watch the Meacher penalty because by then I did what Wilfred Nancy does and went and sat in the dugout. I don't normally, but I missed the penalty. And when I heard the the team cheer, I knew that he'd scored. So, yeah, it wasn't ideal for me, that one. But normally I'm okay.
You missed all the build-up with Celentano coming out, chirping in his ear, and Micha smile. I'm sure you've seen it back now on video. But for a kid that age, he stepped up in a big moment, produced.
Yeah, and I've said before, they asked me about when I put Malachi in the home leg at Citi Field. I take the development of players and that responsibility really seriously. They can't really fail in those moments because either way, in my opinion, they're going to learn. Malachi goes in, if he plays poor, Agustino Hayder went in against New England, Micha in this one. If he misses it, he'd be better for it in his future. I understand that we have to carry the outcome, but I bear the responsibility. I wouldn't have put him up if I didn't believe in him. And if he misses it, going in before Maxi Morales or before, then it's on me, and I take that responsibility.
All right, so Nick Cushing, we learned, did not watch the Micha Ilinic penalty. He watched the 3 consecutive misses, and on the 4th try, I was calling it match point. The 4th match point, New York City finally gets past it. It was the 9th penalty, and Matt Freese with 3 penalty saves. And interestingly enough, the Red Bulls, who swept Columbus Crew SC, Carlos Coronel, 3 penalty saves in the match at Red Bull Arena that got them their 2nd win. But let's go back and enjoy this. This is how it ended at TQL in Cincinnati, as heard on the New York City FC Network.
Micha Ilinic has now approached the penalty spot. Celentano is chirping in his ear as well. Drew Fisher's had enough as well. He wants to go home. He can't even send Celentano back to the goal line.
Leaving it up to the teenager, New York City. This is the 4th occasion here in the penalty kick shootout that they could end it. Ilinic, he finishes top corner right. Hands held to his head. That's his 2nd career New York City FC goal. Mobbed by his teammates. Cincinnati, they've collapsed. Oh, my word. New York City FC. Down a game. They lost here at TQL. Game 1, 1-0. Came back to win it at Citi Field, 3-1, to force this 3rd and deciding game. Matt Freese gets his first clean sheet in 15 games, all competitions, and then comes up with 3 saves in the penalty kick shootout. Well. So that was the way it ended, man. We don't like the best of 3, but it did provide drama.
Yeah, it did. And look, it feels great when you win a penalty shootout, but it feels absolutely god-awful when you lose one. That's for certain. And for Ilinic, I do take Nick Cushing's point that even if it had missed, he should have learned or would learn from that failure. But probably at the time, it wouldn't have felt like that.
But the way he put it, he took the kick ahead of Maxi Morales. Now, Maxi Morales' lifetime in MLS, all comps, 13 of 20.
Yeah.
So, and his most recent PK was against Columbus in the Leagues Cup in that penalty shootout, and he had it saved. It was not a great take by him. So, and remember, I don't know if you remember, I think I talked about it in commentary, but Maxi collapsed at the end of 90 minutes. It looked like he needed to almost be carried off the field, and maybe he just wasn't physically pronounced.
Physically and probably a little bit mentally as well. Yeah. He's probably mentally absolutely wiped out as well. And also look, if he was a 20 out of a 20 penalty merchant, he would have stood up there with one leg and struck it home. But 13 out of 20, missed his last one. Yes, suffering cramp, only just come back from an ACL injury. I think it was the right move. And look, that's not just hindsight talking. He was shattered, and I mean mentally and physically at the end of that game. So yes, to put up the youngsters, to put up very inexperienced players in comparison, the likes of Hack, the likes of Ilinic, then it speaks volumes for Nick's belief in his younger players.
And Micha Ilinic is going to start today. We'll give the 11 very shortly. And the lineup is officially out, and so we can let it roll. No changes for New York City FC. No changes for the New York Red Bulls. We'll get into that a little bit too. But why would you change, I suppose, is one of the credos that you would come up with here. But Ilinic, look, he maybe is poised to have an impressive game. One thing I'm thinking, Matty, is that the right side of New York City FC and the left side of the New York Red Bulls. I'm intrigued by that because that's John Tolkien and Lewis Morgan, and then it's Micha Ilinic and Hannes Wolf. Wolf has 1 goal contribution in his last 16 games, all competitions. Hasn't really been productive, but he puts in the work defensively. But can Ilinic put enough pressure on Tolkien in particular to keep him home?
Well, the big thing is, yes, we assume that they would keep the same lineup, but that's the formation as well. So now it's a back 5 or a back 3 centre halves with wing backs. I think that suits Tolkien more. And it's absolutely up to Hannes Wolf and Micha Ilinic combined to push him back the way, to get him back. Because when he's in full flow, Tolkien, I think he's one of the best fullbacks or best wing backs in the league, if not the best. He hasn't had a great season this season. I think he was put off. Yeah. I think he was put off by rumours that he'd be going to Europe in the summer. I was going to say, but I mean in the off season it would be the summer in Europe, and it just didn't materialise. And that can hurt a young player. I remember I had a relatively big move in the offing. Lots of people were talking about it. You can't fail to notice it yourself, and it takes you a little while to adjust to that. And for Tolkien, who knows what's going to happen today? But for most of this season, he has not been up to the quality that he showed us last season. I think that's factual.
2 goals and 1 assist, playing full time. And take a look at the field here for a moment, Matty. We talked about the wind as we both walked into the stadium here, Citi Field. And if you look at the far right sprinkler, if you're watching this, you can see how the water is just being sprayed towards us, right?
Well, it's not going on the pitch. It's actually just going upwards, isn't it? The water is obviously being shot from the ground sprinklers, but it's going up and then just being blown into the crowd. I don't think we can quite see it on your picture, Glenn, but we are watching it. And it looks like rainfall over the stands. It's just getting whipped up. I always say, Glenn, anybody who listens when I always say, I don't care about the cold, the heat, any of it, but it's the wind that can ruin a game of football, can truly ruin a game of football, and you have to adapt to it very, very quickly. And in these big games, a monumental game, a local derby as well, you've got to deal with discipline, and then you've got to deal with the wind as well. For me, the most important things today, keep 11 men on the pitch. Have to keep 11 men on the pitch. Don't get carried away with the occasion. So many times in big games, either I've played in or I've watched in, you get a little bit heated, you get a bit ahead of yourself, and quite often you lunge in that first tackle, and someone can end up getting sent off. I don't want to see that whether it's a Red Bulls player or NYCFC player. Games of football, we want 22 people out there, and we want to witness the best against the best. But that's up to the managers to deal with that. I'm sure the last thing the managers will say is keep 11 men on the pitch. It's not go out and win, it's keep 11 men on the pitch, keep your heads, keep your discipline.
Well, that's part of the derby dilemma sometimes, and then add on to it a playoff fixture and a knockout game, and that sort of discipline's got to be vital. Now, the last time these two played, New York City on the road at Red Bull Arena, Harrison, New Jersey, beat the Red Bulls 5-1. So talk to Nick Cushing about that a little bit. The pregame show at the top of the hour, 5 p.m. Eastern, will include my one-on-one with Nick, so the full conversation will be there. Here's a portion of it, though, talking about Red Bull New York.
Nah, I don't necessarily think it's Columbus. I do think that they're more direct post us. I think you can see that the data shows that they don't play so many passes from the goalkeeper to the midfield players. They get the ball forward a lot quicker, and they play off second balls for transition. So it's a little bit more the Red Bull of old. They're a little bit more...
Yeah, like 46% possession, which is lower end of the... I think the 4th lowest in the league.
They're more like Gerhard Stuber, Troy Lesane Red Bull than Sandro Schwartz Red Bull, in the sense of, they were more possession based under Sandro earlier than they are now. It's going to be a difficult game. I think the data shows that post our game they've decided to be a bit more direct, and that's where they're dangerous. So I understand it. For me, it's about playing the game that's in front of us. If we have pressing opportunities, brilliant. If the ball is direct, we have to fight for second balls and we have to compete.
Nick Cushing, part of the pregame show presented by Ford, coming up. But so his claim in observing them is that they've changed since that 5-1 game. And at Citi Field, you would expect them to bring it as well in a similar fashion.
Well, they've changed formation first and foremost. Right. That's a major thing for me. And yes, they're going a little bit more direct, as we heard Nick say. we also cannot forget that, yes, that was a 5-1 win for NYCFC. But if you look down at the stats, and Nick loves talking about stats and analytics, so I'll hit back with them. They outshot NYCFC. 16 shots they had to 11 of NYCFC in that game. 4 shots on target. Granted, NYCFC had 6 shots on target, but 6 shots on target and 5 hit the back of the net. That rarely happens, that nearly 100% of your shots on target find the net. Normally, the goalkeeper can manage to save a few of them. So we mustn't forget that could have been a 5-4 game, a 5-3 game. And yes, they've also changed up as well. The big thing is Forsberg is back and fit. That is the massive thing within the parity of this league. If you've got somebody of the quality of Forsberg who's getting paid $6.5 million a year, you can bet your life that he's going to make your team better. Of course he is, because he's getting paid more than the rest of the team put together. So yes, he is a pivotal part of this team, and a pivotal part of the win against Columbus. Twice.
No question. Emil Forsberg and Lee Morgan, Lewis Morgan. Lee Morgan is a great trumpeter. I'm sorry.
Wouldn't mind him playing centre forward for the Red Bulls.
So Lewis Morgan and Forsberg, they have combined in their goals plus assists, 62% of the goals for Red Bull. Alonso Martinez and Santi Rodriguez, goal contributions, 76% of the New York City goals. It's fair to say that those 4 individuals are going to play a massive role today. And
Forsberg, let's not forget, missed an awful lot of football because of alleged injury or problems he had at home. And the fact of the matter is, they'd be up there, wouldn't they? They'd be up there with 75% to 80%. You'd have thought Lewis Morgan and Forsberg. It will be in games like this, who can deal with the occasion? That's the starting 11. And then which big players stand up, whether it's a Messi for Miami, whether it's a Forsberg for New York Red Bulls, or Santi Rodriguez for NYCFC. It's in these big games that your big players, especially in MLS, where you have the 3 DPs, they're the ones you pay all your money to. That's why you pay them the money. It's not to win during the regular season, because the regular season is almost irrelevant because everybody gets into the playoffs anyway. It is, you have to perform if you're those highly paid players in these big game occasions. And look, so far Forsberg and Morgan and Morales, Santi Rodriguez or Martinez have stood up and they have been counted. So, yeah, look, we've got 4 players that you're definitely going to have to keep an eye on. But also from set pieces, and Neelis may come up from the back. Justin Hack may come up from the back. It's not just about the big game players or big name players getting the goals and the assists, but certainly they will be dictating the speed, the pace, the tempo of the game in the field.
Well, Matty, I've got a treat here for you. A couple of days ago, Roberto Abramowitz, who does the Spanish commentary, and we host a weekly podcast, NYCFC Views. And I've stayed in touch with Anton Titterholm because he was one of the good guys here. And
one of the
supporters loved him. Great player. Then he went back to Malmo, where he was loved there, and he's had some injury problems. But I brought him on especially to ask him, what his favorite derby moments were. So let's bring up Anton from a couple of nights ago.
First thing that pops up in my mind is Eber's flick when I have the assist on the side, and I have a nutmeg on the defender and he flicks it, and then it's a nutmeg on the defender or the keeper. Maybe my best memory is when, I don't know what year it was, but we got an early send-off in the first half. I think it was this Eloy that was on loan. So we were 1 man down in the first half, and then they scored 1-0, and then we equalized, and then we got another guy sending off. So we were 2 men down. It was so heated on the field and even on the stadium. It's not always like that. I've been honest to like the fans and everything, saying that the atmosphere in MLS and New York is not even close to how it is in Europe and Allsvenskan. But at that game, it really felt like it was something different going on.
So Anton Titterholm, you can listen to the full interview on NYCFC Views or my podcast On Frame. Wonderful to catch up with him. Now he's talking about the Eber goal he assisted on. Fantastic. Eber megging Luis Robles, and that was in 2019, 2-1 win at Yankee Stadium. But the game he was talking about where they were 2 players down, also at Yankee Stadium, 30,000 plus. So you heard him talk about the atmosphere, and you have to be clear, and he always was, and it's just not quite the same here. But what he was saying is that day, it was and it was Eloy Amagat and Ebenezer Afori who were sent off in that game. Amagat, I remember Dome Turan brought him over because he was with Girona, and it just didn't work. It just
You're
did
very
not work.
kind. You're a very kind man, Glenn, for putting it like that.
All right. Well, look, there's the lineup, unchanged from the penalty kick win against FC Cincinnati in Game 3 of that best of 3 to get to this point and host in the Eastern Conference semifinals. That's because the top 3 seeds are out. Matty, we went from Hell is Real Derby, the Ohio teams losing, to Hell's Kitchen Derby, New York City and the New York Red Bulls. We've got the commentary for you starting at 5 o'clock, top of the hour Eastern. That's the pregame show, kickoff at 5:40 p.m. So for Matty Lawrence, I'm Glenn Crooks. Thanks so much for joining us on this, and hopefully we'll be talking to you soon. Enjoy the game, everybody.